And this is a working session to look at your problems or your challenges of the week, the month, and we're hoping to show you how to flip it into a conversations worth having. And the next slide is a slide of fish, and I like to think of conversations are like the water that we swim in, or even the fish swim in. And sometimes fish don't even realize they're in that water until you take them out. And, you know, think about your conversations. If the water becomes toxic for the fish, they cannot thrive. And if your conversations are critical, negative, toxic, then you're not thriving, and the people you're engaging in are not thriving. So we want to introduce two simple practices. And the first practice is generative questions. And we'd like you to think of generative questions as questions that change your thinking. Generative questions create positive images, and generative questions begin to first deepen understanding, strengthen relationships, create new possibilities. And then the second practice, Sherry, if you can click on that second practice. The second practice is positive framing. And that's learning to talk about what you want instead of what you don't want, or what you hope to happen instead of what you don't want to happen. And positive framing and generative questions, these two practices, when pulled together, they really add value to the conversation, to the person, and adding more value to what you're having a conversation about. So what we want to do is we want to put these into practice. We're going to work on generative questions, and we're going to ask you to type into the chat box any issues or situations and where you're stuck in negative thinking, negative conversations, a problem that you're having. And what we're going to use is we're going to use the whiteboard in the chat box area. So I think what we want to do, Sherry, is if you can, if you're new to whiteboard, once we get you back into Zoom as a whole, on the top of your screen, you'll click on View Options. There's a drop-down menu. You'll select Annotate, and then you'll see a toolbar come across. And if you click on Format, you get to pick your favorite color and set the font to like 12 or 14. And after we put the challenge or the problem in the whiteboard, you'll be able to click on the text box and help ask generative type of questions. So how about if we leave the slide? Oh, Laura is with us now. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Sherry, do you want me to do the chat, or I'm sorry, the whiteboard, or do you want to do that?
I'll put it up right there.
She's there already. So you can go to View Options. I'll say it again. Go down to Annotate. Click on Format. Pick your favorite color. You can even pick your line width, set your font to 12 or 14 point. And then if we just want to practice for a second, you can put in the text box, type something right there. There you go, everybody's playing in there. And there's also a stamp that I'm going to show you guys, but if you like something that someone's typed, you can click on the stamp and put a star by it. You guys are clicking away. So I think what we'll want to do is clear it. Sherry's already cleared it. And if you go over to your chat box, we'd like you to add any type of problems, challenges, situations that you're dealing with right now, with self, with others in your family, concerns about work, communities.
Or if there's some group that keeps spinning around a particular conversation that is negative and not going anywhere, if you want to know how can I shift that dynamic.
And what we will be doing is when we're working in the whiteboard, you can actually save the whiteboard yourself, but we will be saving these whiteboard snapshots and mailing them back out to you. So does anybody have any problems or issues or challenges that they want to address this morning in their spaces?
Hey, Sherry and Jack, it might be worth saying that if you're in annotate mode and you're looking to get back to that chat box, you have to actually exit out of annotate first. So if you were scrambling around like I was trying to find that chat box, that might just be me, but.
All right, I didn't know that. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I figured that one out too for the second time. It took me a couple of times to figure that out.
And if you can't find it and you would like to just tell us one, we can type it in there for you.
Yeah, you can unmute your microphone.
All right.
I would like to work on facing constant criticism from some members of my family.
Ah,
Okay, constant.
Oh, that's not easy to read. Let me change my color.
And can you tell us more about the background of the constant criticism? Is it about a specific issue or is it just constantly?
It's about believing that there's only one way of doing things right. So it's a lot of judgment and, you know, a very narrow point of view. There's only one way of doing things. If you don't do the things that way, you're not doing well. So
that's a great one. Is that Carla?
yes.
Okay,
Me.
great. If you'll leave your microphone unmuted, and then as people add either questions or reframes on this, we can engage in a bit of a conversation about how you think that question or that reframe might support
Thank you.
might support the conversation.
So if you're new, again, go back to view options, down to annotate, click on format, and then click on the text box. And what kind of questions might you help ask when you have constant criticism from somebody else?
So we have one up now. It's what is happening for the other person when they criticize you?
You want me to answer?
Not necessarily answering the question, but would that question help to shift either your internal dialogue, the way you're feeling, or about asking them that question?
Yes, it changed. I can see the positive intention of the thing, so it's easier.
So if you want to, I'm open to hearing your ideas. What else could you share with me regarding? What's another way of doing things in a way that benefits both of us?
And Anna added into the chat box, I can see this narrow-minded approach unfolding in the work setting as well. Absolutely.
Yes, good idea. Thank you.
How could you help them understand there are more ways to do?
Thanks. Carla said, thank you. Lots of good ideas.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about your perspective? And so some of these really help to connect with the person. Like, can you tell me more about your perspective or what's going on for you at the present moment? So some of these are about yes and.
Yes, and approach.
Yeah.
Yes.
How does it feel when you just listen and don't respond?
So what we're going to do next is I'm going to save this. And if you decide to save this as well, it shows up in your document section in a Zoom folder. And we will also put these out for you guys. We're going to, are we going to put them up on the website this time or email them?
I'll send them out in an email again, so that they'll have everything. They'll have today's plus all the rest that are all be in one place for them.
Great. All right, these are wonderful. Carla, this helps you out? Thank you. Lots of good ideas, she said.
Great.
All right. How about if we clear it? And the next one is, how can I help my coworkers to feel safe as we return to our offices? How can I help my coworkers feel safe? Yes, that's big issue for so many organizations and communities and gatherings.
Ask, how can I help you when you return? Great question. Just straight up ask them. Whose question is this one?
It's Michael and Laura.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. So if both of you want to unmute your microphones, and just as people type this up, to give some reflection on how you think this either question or reframe might be really helpful. What information do you need to feel more safe, and how can I help you find it?
Yeah, I think many of the questions about they speak to how we define safety are really valuable. And then of course, that great question of, can you describe a different time, or a time you felt safe, or another time when you overcame being fearful? That's certainly helpful as well.
I love the one was, what information do you need to feel more safe, and how can I help you find it?
Sorry, I was going to say, piggybacking on what I believe Michael just has said, is that asking them to think of an example when they were afraid of something, but when it turned out to be the reality actually was not so bad, because sometimes we're just increasing our fears by ruminating on something mentally, and then when it comes to the real situation, it's not as bad.
Nice.
Indeed, thank you.
That's an important. Someone I think typed, what does safe mean to you? It means different things to different people.
Yes. Yep. So Mike and Laura, are these helpful? Do you want some more? Or is this good?
Laura's smiling with thumbs up. Okay, thumbs up. All right, let me save it. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Now the next one, Sherry, is a, whoops.
About the one from Suzette that says we close out. I'm going to copy and paste that in here.
Yeah, that's a long one.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to copy and paste.
I was going to read it to you, and then I was trying to figure out how to cut and paste it.
All right.
All right. I will read it out loud. As we close out virtual learning, we're talking about kindergarten through 8th, we are required to provide end of the year feedback, quasi report cards, and hold one-on-one conversations with all of our parents. And Suzette, you have 130 students, and you need to keep it positive and upbeat, but be honest. So can you tell us more? Wow, that's 130 conversations. Are you looking?
Obviously, that's not going to happen in 1 week's time frame. And to be honest with you, 90% of my students didn't log on at all or do any work. I'm an elective teacher, and so they felt don't need to. So You know, I'm about keeping it positive and, you know, starting with good news. The good news is they're safe and healthy, but after that.
So tell us more about what kind of questions we can give you. Are these questions to ask the parents?
No, these are, it's like a report card. We have to go through and score each of our students in terms of, did they log on doing virtual learning? Did they meet the standards? And I've got 5 different classes that have multiple standards. And then percentage of work completed, more than 50% or less than 50%. If you had 90% that didn't log on, there's nothing positive there. It's didn't log on and didn't meet standards. And so on top of, it's just unrealistic to have that many conversations with parents that are already, you know, ready to go. So just food for thought, you know, looking for a different perspective.
I wonder, Suzette, if it's possible to differentiate what you write on the card, because you've got formal requirements as to what you're supposed to put in there, and the conversation with the parent. Because what I can see potentially happening is the child has not been logging in, they have not been doing the work, but possibly the parents kept them occupied in the other ways that are, you know, in the reach for them for some reasons, right? So maybe obviously being professional and doing what you need to do on the reports, but then when you hold the conversation with the parents, you know, comment on why you had to put the report like that, but then really twist the conversation in a way that, well, you know, I hope that your family were able to, despite of the difficulties, were able to find different ways to engage the child, and maybe sharing of some of your ideas how they can do it going forward. Like really separate those two, because if they haven't done the work, formal work, there is nothing you can do. You can't spice that up for them. But what you can do, you can possibly engage them in some thinking how they can help their child going forward. And if I were the parent, I would really appreciate you know, you helping me that way. That's just my 2 cents.
Great, good. I like that.
I think this also speaks to something that I've been thinking a lot about, is sort of the notion that we look to say kids aren't online and therefore they're not showing up and not doing anything. And how many of those kids would like to be online, but they have no access for one reason or another. And then the other piece is where, you know, one of the things that I know that teachers and schools are always wanting is parent involvement. And it's sometimes very hard to get because parents are working, et cetera. This seems like such an opportune time to be able to engage parents in a way that says, here are the end of year goals. I mean, this is a little late for this year, but you might even say, here were the end of year goals for your child, and help, if you can help me to assess where they are with these, because they weren't online, and I don't know whether they've been doing things in the background, doing the homework, or to just engage with parents to say, how else can you help your child reach these end of year goals because they're at school, because this may continue into next fall. And so it's a great opportunity to deeply engage parents.
And I appreciate that. I think had this come about 5 weeks ago, my response would have been very different. But because we've had these Monday Kickstart conversations and I've been doing some other things, the fact that you all are suggesting changing the conversation, I mean, yeah, I've got to do the checklist and I've got to do the things, but the conversational piece, I can make that what I want it to be, because nobody's going to be taping me. Yeah. So to have that positivity, what can we do over the summer or even to get ready for the fall, I think is a great suggestion. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And don't forget to ask them to maybe even include depending upon how old the child is, include the child in how can I meet these goals best.
And Suzette, were you part of, last week we did 2 90-minute sessions with Renee, I can't even think of his last name right
Renee
now.
Christensen.
Christensen
Yes.
on an invitation.
Yes.
All right, because that has really helped me. And I typed in the question that he said, what is the student inviting me to learn? And what are we being invited to learn by them not being there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yes. So, thank you.
You are
Very
welcome.
rich.
Yeah, very rich. All right, I'll grab another one.
Okay, I don't see another one. Certainly someone has to have another challenge or problem or issue.
Or just someplace you're stuck.
Yeah. You can even shout it out.
So I've got one I'm going to throw up there. And it's I'm concerned that everybody's going to want to go back to everything as normal as soon as possible, and there's so much opportunity here. How do we not lose it?
Thank you, Sherry, for bringing this up. I think it's been on my mind, but I just couldn't verbalize it for this particular exercise. Because really it applies, in my case, it applies some teams at work who are expecting things to get back to the previous norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a change management, in this role, I'm a change management consultant working in IT. So really, some teams are not ready to fully get absorbed in the cloud environment and modernize the workspace, and they really have to at this point. So I'm thinking how to help them out. So that is exactly what you're saying, and there are other numerous applications of the issue that you brought up. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was reading your mind.
Absolutely.
What can I do to internalize the winter liminal space of this time for my thinking? Whoever typed that, can you say a little more, please? Joan, was that you? Who typed in, what can I do to internalize the winter liminal space of this time for my thinking?
It's Jennifer. Hi.
Jennifer, hi.
Couldn't get unmuted without going out of the thing. So this is a great time, I think. If you think about it, even though it's almost summer, it's winter for us in mental status. It's where we are. We're kind of in a hibernation, and a time when we can do some thinking and some real adjusting of how we approach things, including how do we not rush back in? How can we actually take advantage of this time to think of what's new and possible? So that's what I mean by liminal space. It's like the cocoon that we're in. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody, several of you have typed, what have been some very beneficial ways of working? What's worked well, and how do we do more of it and make it even better? What has been different and good about this COVID time?
Where were the places that worked well over the past? That's nice.
And sometimes if you accidentally type over someone's question, you can remove your box over. I can't, but I know you should be able to.
I think you can't.
Once you hit enter, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I think once you
hit enter, you can't.
Supporter structure.
Sherry, you can though.
I can?
Yeah, if you on the left-hand side, of text, you should have a select button. If you hit the select button, you can pick up anybody's square and move it.
Thank you so much. I love it when I learn stuff on these calls. Thank you so much, Joan. Support structures can be put in place. Yes.
Good. Nice.
A question I would love to have just all organizations looking at as they go forward is so much information and awareness around disparities and how essential workers who are usually paid the least are what have kept us going at their own risk, and how do organizations step up to those awarenesses as we go forward.
Beautiful.
All right, we are coming down to the close of this, so we'll save this.
All right.
And I will stop sharing.
Boy, that goes by fast, the 30 minutes we're together.
So in the last minute, I'm curious, for those of you who've been on these calls for several times, is it beginning to shift the way you're thinking around other things that you're doing? Are you bringing this forward? Yeah, good. I like to see your face. I can see it. And
I think it's just become much more fluent. So I think that I was always kind of trying to figure it out and mull it over, but it's just become more fluent across different settings and across different people. True generalization.
Wonderful. Yay.
It's practice, and you're going to become so comfortable, you'll just naturally be asking generative questions.
For me, again, it's changing my mindset, becoming more confident, and now I don't want to use the wrong word, I'm challenging my coworkers and making them feel uncomfortable so that we can start the conversation. And I think we needed that. We needed to jostle some things during this time, or else we wouldn't improve. So I'm kind of it's a good thing, but I'm also in this valley of, uh-oh. Yeah. Now the snake pit has been opened. What's to come? So I need these to continue so I can keep feeling confident and the snake, great ideas.
Snake pit's all about transformation, right? They shed their skin. So, and it just occurs to me, Suzette, there's a great conversation with your colleagues about how should we be doing our end of year evaluations this year, and maybe it's not so black and white. They didn't learn anything because they're not online, or
we don't know that.
Challenging that from the outset. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone.
Sorry, before we wrap up, Suzette, I did send you a message in the chat in private in regards to your question, not to take up the time. I'm not sure if you've seen that, because I not always notice what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Just bring your attention, sorry.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing your attention.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for joining, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.